It's time for Internet Explorers. It's time for Internet Explorers. It's time for Internet Explorers.
Oh, baby. Episode 39, Internet Explorers. Are we back? Are we back? Are we live?
Are we streaming on Sanko today? I love it.
We are so live. I think we've been streaming every time, but I'm like realizing maybe our stream key needs to be. Oh no, it hasn't caught them all. We're sending it out. I need to get better about setting up our stream key over here with the lads in Sanko.
I mean, the number of times Study Sanko has been mentioned over the last little while by you, Josh, specifically.
I love
many.
Sanko as an example for a lot of the things that I talk about.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, every Friday we're here, 10 a.m. Pacific time. This is Internet Explorers. We dive into the most interesting topics from the emerging crypto consumer internet. Have some wonderful guests for you today with Meltem jumping on to tell us all about how we can be cool like her on the internet. I'm not sure she'll frame it quite that way. Personal lore, brand building, narratives. My hope is we can just wind her up and just see what gold comes out as we jam with her at the top of this hour. We're going to talk wedges, lots of stuff happening at Pudgies. I like the thread that you've been on around disrupting pump. I think it's asking some interesting questions, and there's no shortage of this sort of fast follower startup. There's a billion fantasy top, not a billion. There are many fantasy top attempts. There are many pump attempts. Are they destined to failure, or is there opportunity there? I also love this thread of short memes because we'll save that conversation for here. Zora's trying to define some new words. Prediction markets might become less poly market and more fun. And then lightning round. My goal is to get out of here before the lightning round. I've got a plane to catch. So if you see me dip, that's what we're doing. But we're ready. Somebody's getting married this weekend. One of our lovely team members is getting married this weekend. So we're very excited about that. But of course, joined here with Josh. How you doing, Josh?
Great, man. It was a fun week. I think back having a lot of really interesting conversations with super early consumer crypto founders, which just
you're in your lane.
I'm in my lane. A lot of our SEO7 teams are getting pretty deep into fundraising processes. Lots of fun news there. So if you're an investor and you're not talking to them, get at us. You're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss it. And we have an alpha. We have a Telegram alpha channel now that I'm having a lot of fun with, and I think people are liking. So it's been a fun week.
Yeah, somebody's like, why is your alpha just interesting news and relevant topics? I'm like, oh, right, because the alpha will be slipped into that feed. I like to think of it as sort of like the feed, and it's Josh, myself, I think a couple other people are just dropping really the interesting links there. So if you want to know, like if you don't want to wait until Friday, I guess, to see what we've been reading, you can get it real time through the feed. So if we can drop that into the chat, that would be wonderful.
And we had some brain dump top of mind context to them too. So I think you get a little extra.
It's good. It's good.
It's great.
Yeah, I think this is helpful to. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we'd just be sharing personally.
Exactly.
Yeah, so make sure you're on that. All right, well, we got a big show here today, and if we're ready, we'd love to welcome our guest today, Meltem.
GM.
Sorry, am I supposed to say Degen Princess as the official title here, or
You tell me. It's your show.
well, I see it written here, Degen Princess, DP. I'm gonna still go with Meltem, but
Well, I think
rock and
it's
roll.
because all of my devices are labeled Degen Princess. That was my handle for a long time. Kind of
Love it.
stuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the high priestess of Gooch Island or something. Is that no longer the thing?
I don't like to be pigeonholed into any one thing. We all contain multitudes. So, let me live. Let me be fractally expansive, if you will.
We will.
Yeah, we believe in fractals and expansiveness here. Cool. Well, so I'm assuming most people have seen you on the internet. You've been a big advocate for crypto for a number of years now. But there's a lot of new people here who come and join us at C Club. So if you maybe just give us the 30-second intro, and then I want to just jump into the insights that you're ready to drop with us here today.
Yeah, and I think for today's purposes, so my background, I have been an investor building investment firms in the first Bitcoin space and later crypto space for the last decade. First at DCG, so was there very early on and helped build that firm and build really a great community around Bitcoin. It was really my first exercise in building a cult. Very successful there, 250 portfolio companies, 4 subsidiaries when I left. DCG, I think in some ways has been a defining firm for the industry. Then went over to CoinShares. We did the same thing, but in a different sort of context. We took that firm public, and building a firm in public equities markets, very different than, crypto markets. And then have just sort of continued to experiment with this idea of the intersection of communities and capital. Like when I think of Bitcoin really first and foremost as a religion. It's a cult. We have lore. We have a deity, right? We have a prosaic sort of figure, Satoshi. Satoshi was very selfless, and that characteristic of being a quote unquote prophet and being selfless and sort of embodying the values that a community then later adopts, it's part of religious myths throughout human history. And then, all of the rites and rituals, all of the little catchphrases, later on, the schisms in Bitcoin due to differences in ideology amongst proponents of Bitcoin, differences in vision on how the project should progress. Similar to kind of the schism we saw in the church, right, for various reasons. And so to me, it's just been really interesting to observe anytime we're creating new technology, new social movements, lore, storytelling, mythos, this idea of how we capture the collective imagination is really important. And so I've just been experimenting really over the last few years with how you do that in different ways. One expression of that, my first sort of experiment with that outside of Bitcoin was Ether Rocks. Then it was crypto dick butts. And I think crypto dick butts were fun because they were so absurd and so highly mimetic, similarly with rocks. And then now I'm sort of on a different kick. I'm starting a new cult that's focused on atoms and electrons, kind of these core thermoeconomic building blocks of humanity that I think are really interesting. But all of this is really just an iteration of the same concept that I think we should talk about, which is how do human beings create reality, right? I believe that reality is not something that like default exists. It's something that's created, and it's primarily created through storytelling. And I think that as a community in crypto, we're not always actively aware of how involved we are as a group and also as individuals in creating the reality that we will occupy, and also bending the arc of reality outside of the world of crypto, right? Crypto is now reshaping the physical world. We see this with Bitcoin and the data center economy that's been built around Bitcoin. That model is now being applied to the AI space, and I think will sort of transcend far beyond just those two very specific types of computation. But yeah, it's really an exercise in like collective reality creation, and it really starts with embracing lore, mythology, and cults. So we can dig into any and all of that.
We'll dive into that, but maybe at the high level, because I think there's still this like the debate of the last few months was meme coins, right? And I think at the core, it's sort of like this debate of fundamental value versus attention, belief, cult value. Maybe choose that word here. when you're looking at sort of like the value we're creating in crypto, are those separate things? Are they together? Is one more valuable than the other? I think we have a pretty strong opinion at Seed Club that the social, cultural world is actually where a lot of the value in cryptos come from already, and belief, right? I think that's
Yep.
we've laid out with Bitcoin. But there also seems to be this thing of like, this is just like the now time, right? Regulations will change, other things will change, and all of a sudden we'll have, tokens will look more like stocks, which I'm not a big believer in, but I'm curious sort of where you're at that high level.
Well, maybe I'll just share a brief anecdote. For the last decade, I've been talking to people about Bitcoin and crypto. And in the early days, a lot of times I'd be in rooms with people who work in traditional finance, who've built asset management firms in, different asset classes, things like commodities, public equities, private credit markets, so things that are quote unquote very real. And the constant sort of pushback I would get against Bitcoin is, well, Bitcoin's not real. Crypto's not real. Meme coins aren't real. Okay, so in the very making of that statement, you are presupposing that there is real and not real things. And my view is that anything the human mind can conceive, right, and create is, by very matter of fact, entering into our consciousness and therefore becoming real. So the next question that always prompts for me, right, and a lot of times I just ask people questions, provocative questions, to sort of untangle the meaning behind what they're saying and sort of help demonstrate that their mental model is sort of very flawed, right? It doesn't make any sense, rationally thinking. So when people say, well, it's not real, I ask them, well, what is real? Oh, something that has cash flow attached to it. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's look at Zoom. Let's look at NVIDIA. Let's look at some of these stocks that have insane valuations trading at 1,000+ forward multiples. Is that real? And they're like, well, no, that doesn't count. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll give, like, if we tease this out, there are a lot of unreal things that are happening in the world. And really what you're saying is, I am rejecting everything that does not fall into a very specific mental framework that feels familiar to me. That is not a part of my mythos, my mythology, my understanding. Really what I think is interesting about what we're doing here, again, anything that we can conceptualize becomes real. Anything that we create stories about becomes real. And we live in the age of the attention economy. That has always been the truth, but nowhere is it more present than now, where ephemeral trends can very quickly pierce that veil of reality, right? And go from sort of this unreal, very online meta to being highly financialized and very real, because it's creating hundreds of millions, billions, potentially trillions of dollars of economic value.
Preach.
And so I think this idea of like, what is real, what is not real, is a false dichotomy. It's really, what is the mental model that you're applying to what you consider real or not real? And the important thing to understand is, and why I like to sort of touch the edge of the absurd at all times as an investor, is things that seem the most absurd, right? Whatever these fringe groups of people are pushing into reality, sort of into the collective consciousness by creating these mimetic movements, that is where a lot of value creation and value capture will happen. I may not agree with it. I may not understand it. I may not necessarily be a part of it. But if you are unable to grasp that concept, I think you are really going to miss out on what the next 2-3 decades of markets are going to look like, because they're going to look a lot more like crypto than traditional macro. And we see this, right? Traditional portfolio construction is no longer a reality. We live in this new paradigm of investing, and I think it's going to get a whole lot crazier. Broader markets are going to resemble crypto and shitcoins much more than crypto will resemble more traditional markets. So it's this really interesting dichotomy. But again, what we conceive and what we think about, what we talk about, is what becomes real, which is why I think crypto has been this really powerful, potent cultural force that has radically reshaped financial markets. And this is really the first time, I think, outside of the meme stock craze during, Wall Street Bets era, that we've really seen that happening at scale, which is why I continue to find crypto just the most interesting place to spend time. Like, we're at this really interesting intersection of creating reality and then making it, financialized. That's really cool. Crazy also.
Yeah, I love it. I knew we just like wind you up and then you're going to cook for a little while. I want to shift into so we have a lot of early stage projects. There's a lot of early stage builders listening to us. It's a very different landscape today than where we were 10 years ago with Bitcoin and the cult that maybe was sort of emerging then. And we live in a world where there's an unlimited amount of assets, in addition to the unlimited number of places for us to go pay attention. So, if we think about somebody who's just getting started, or maybe even about to get started, how can we be useful to them in this sort of personal lore building endeavor?
Yeah. Okay, so I think there are a few foundational sort of things that are very important to understand, and history has great lessons to offer us. I think that if you look at sort of how civilizations have been built, they've always been predicated on strong lore, right? Even if you look at the rise of something like NVIDIA, right? Jensen Huang, in and of himself, is like, there's a lot of lore surrounding that company. Elon Musk, a ton of lore surrounding him. So I think the most important thing is I do think we're in an era where people want authentic sort of founder-led engagement, founder-led narrative. So figuring out your personal lore and the way you're going to share that lore with the world is really important. Some people are really good at shit posting and memes, and if you are, you should lean into that. I tend to be, you know, I like to think I'm sort of sarcastically funny. That feels natural to me. So that's my style. Other people are not funny. They're quite serious and profound. And so that works well for them. But I think step one is like figuring out what is your voice and what is your unique story. And a lot of times your unique story, it has to be authentic. I think people can really tell when things are not authentic. But step one to lore building is who are you? What is your story? And then really identifying sort of like characters. They're very common archetypes, right? There's Jungian archetypes, there's Greco-Roman archetypes. Different cultures sort of have similar archetypes, but like, what is your archetype and how are you going to tell stories that sort of highlight you as a character, right? You have to help people place you in the broader context and sort of put you in a specific category so they know what to look to you for. So I think when people look at me, it's like, this woman is really insightful. She sees really insightful things and helps me understand them, but she's also really funny. And in the process of being funny, she highlights these really interesting idiosyncratic inconsistencies or dichotomies that make you think, right? So I like to say I'm crypto's village idiot, right? Where like, oh shit, like yes, but also funny. Important to note, but for everyone that's going to be different. So number one is what's your lore, what's your story? Number two is what's the channel you're going to use to tell that story? And in today's world, there are a lot of different channels. I don't post a lot of images of myself just because I'm not that person. Some people use Twitter more like Instagram, and that works really well for them. Other people share a lot of research content, or maybe they do more podcasts. Like it really depends on what you're comfortable with. I like sharing slides. Slides are my love language. You'll probably see, half the content on my timeline is slides or graphs or images because that makes sense to me. I like that. I think that's interesting. See, I allow myself one like photo of myself a quarter. That was my photo for Q2. That was it. Once a quarter, I do an Instagram like shot, and that's it. But it's figuring out like what are the channels you're going to use, and then what's the type of content you're going to use to tell your story. And then number three is you have to be memorable. And I think being memorable means being bold and being vulnerable. People really, really are attracted to vulnerability. And that means, again, different things for different people. But I don't plan any of this stuff. I don't like have a strategy. It's really how do I show up every day and be authentically myself? It's sharing what I'm thinking about, being okay, being vulnerable, right? I say dumb things all the time that are not necessarily smart. I ask for help all the time because there are things I don't get or I don't understand. So it's really that authentic engagement. And then the last component is like the aesthetic. Aesthetics are everything. Aesthetics matter a lot. Like if you believe in divinity, if you believe in, spirituality, if you believe that we are created in the image of God, you should care about aesthetic a lot. And aesthetic means how you physically present yourself, how you physically show up in the world. It means how you present yourself online. It just means having sort of a consistent, recognizable visual style because the Western mind sees and feels with the eye, right? In the East, it's more the ear. We have the Eastern ear and the Western eye. So I think in Western culture, visuals are really important. So here's an example. If you pause here in the feed, if you go up to that image, here's an example of an image I created together with my designer. This is the new aesthetic I'm working on. It's a pixelated, you don't know if it's Jesus or Buddha or Mary, it's a pixelated religious figure inside a motherboard that I call the digital cathedral. I'm sort of anchoring around this concept of the digital cathedral now, but it's how do you create like the stylistic consistency and make sure that your lore, the way you're telling your story, the way you're visually presenting is consistent. For my slides, I always use the same templates. I recently just got a new template to go with my new brand with a new sort of quote unquote cult / firm I'm launching soon. But it's really about the aesthetic and really being consistent to the aesthetic. And if it does not match the level of your aesthetic. If something's not aesthetically aligned, it could be an event, it could be a podcast, it could be an image, cut it. The minute you start flexing or you start compromising on the aesthetic, you've already lost. Be uncompromising in your aesthetic and ensure that everything sort of meets the bar for your aesthetic. Don't post bad memes. If a tweet is not aesthetically consistent, get rid of it, right? Like, I think that aesthetic consistency is very important. This is why I think crypto needs more drip. Like, go on air wearing a crazy chain. Go on air, like, I want to see some iced out founders. I think that's important, right? Like,
honestly, I think the green behind you is more of a flex than the chain. Ultimately, I like the entire. I'm like, oh, aesthetic.
It's the composition. It's the composition. You have to think in composition, right? Like, what is like this aesthetic?
I'm purely pragmatist. This is the first blockchain. It's called a. I actually don't know what's it called. What's this called? I'm forgetting what it's called. You flip switches. It's like ones and zeros, basically, right? So.
Okay, that's cool.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of white wall behind you.
I'm very, 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 very not stoked with my video setup here whatsoever, and so I'm trying to get in front of it here, so I don't get embarrassed.
You should work on your aesthetic, and then just be consistent in your aesthetic. I do a lot of natural backgrounds. I have a green office wall. I have a brick office wall. Like, just whatever the aesthetic is. Some people have like a crazy Lisa Frank style like unicorn situation, and that works for them. It's different for everyone. The Richard Hart aesthetic. Say what you will, the video of him twerking in front of a fleet of Lamborghinis.
He's amazing.
Out of control. He's
an artist.
It's not for me, but then also, okay, this is a little bit of a deviation. I have a screenshot of this saved somewhere. I take screenshots of shit I think is just wild. If you go on the Wayback Machine and look up what was in Richard Hart's Twitter bio about 18 months ago, you will laugh your pants off. It's so funny. I can't say it on air. It's disgusting, but it's so funny.
Okay.
We'll
do it. We got. Yeah.
Meltem, I need to ask. So, yeah, I think there's just so many different places you could apply this framework. I think there kind of a cultural shift happening that's making this increasingly important. I think crypto is pulling a lot of it out of culture and creating a lot of it itself. And I think we're fully bought into this. We apply it really in the kind of world of consumer crypto and more kind of socially motivated tokens and kind of memetic networks. It seems like you're applying it to the world of DePIN. I'm curious why there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about, the cult I'm excited about now. I think if we look at the last 15 years of sort of tech culture, it's been primarily driven by software, by bits and bytes, right? If we look at what's created and captured the majority of value, whether it's private markets, public equities, even credit markets, right? It has largely been driven by sort of this age of software, largely enterprise SaaS. Managed services, companies like Microsoft, companies like Oracle, Salesforce, et cetera. But we are now seeing the dawn of, I think, a new era. What we're seeing is institutional failure at like just an unprecedented scale across the world. It is religious institutions, it's cultural institutions, academic institutions, but also the most foundational institutions in our world, which are governments themselves. And we see this in the US. If we look at the state of physical infrastructure in the United States of America, the electrical grid, right, is breaking down in numerous parts of the country. It does every summer, and it gets worse every summer. We see this in like our physical infrastructure. We have bridges collapsing, we have roads collapsing, we have water systems collapsing. So we just have this like incredible inability for these institutions that were created to help steward this very important sort of physical infrastructure on which we rely, completely disintegrating. And then at the same time, if we look at all of the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure that makes our digital world possible, in crypto, we talk about self-sovereignty, we talk about building like this resilience to systemic failure. And I've long said Bitcoin is an antidote to governmental chaos you can hold in your portfolio, which is, I think, very important. But if we look at all of the underlying physical infrastructure, right, and you pulled up the OSINT model here, which, like, if you're a networking nerd, the OSINT model is very familiar. We've built a lot of networking and software in the crypto space, but we've never actually bent the arc of reality and started to impact the physical world. The only place we've done that, by the way, is in Bitcoin mining and a little bit with Ethereum mining when Ethereum was still GPU mined. I mean, NVIDIA owes a lot of its success to Ethereum because in 2017, NVIDIA was consistently selling out of GPUs to power Ethereum miners, right? So in a lot of ways, Ethereum's meteoric rise has also contributed directly to the meteoric rise of the most valuable company in the world, NVIDIA, most talked about company in the world today, NVIDIA. But at that hardware layer, right, like, why is our electrical infrastructure highly centralized so brittle? Why are ISPs and other sort of hardware supporting our digital infrastructure so controlled and also so brittle, right? At the end of the day, if someone wanted to attack crypto, they don't even need to do that much. They could just go to the ISPs and the data centers and throttle service. Like, these points in the hardware stack are very centralized. What I think is really cool now is we're experimenting with new ways to let crypto sort of bend the arc of reality of what's built and implemented in the physical world. And we're doing it on the scale of not tens of millions, but on the scale of hundreds of billions of dollars. If we look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin has built a $100 billion dedicated hardware and data center economy in a time when no investors wanted to invest in atoms and electrons. Right? The business models that were applied in Bitcoin mining, because it's super, super important to have really good operating margins, because you can't mine more Bitcoin, right? There's a set block reward. You have to be really good at operating a data center, managing your costs, optimizing your costs, dynamically sort of switching between contributing power back to the grid versus drawing power to run your Bitcoin mining data center. All of those business models that were built in Bitcoin mining are now being leveraged in the AI space to bring a ton of new AI compute online. We have 20 publicly listed companies in the Bitcoin space with a cumulative market cap or aggregate market cap of over 20 billion. So there you see crypto starting to bend the arc of sort of reality in the physical world and also impacting public equities markets. And again, those same models now are being applied to this world of AI compute, which could be exponentially bigger. So I just think that there's this really interesting thing starting to happen where crypto has sort of bent the arc of reality in certain domains, but it's been highly digital and sort of intangible, right? It's untouchable, ineffable. And now we're actually starting to do things that radically reshape our physical world. And that, in my view, is where we cross the chasm from this like very online phenomena, this very financialized phenomena that feels quote unquote unreal, to actually fundamentally changing the fabric of the reality we live in, how it's constructed, but also reshaping the physical world we live in. And so that intersection, as a former commodities person and oil and gas person, that intersection has always been really just sexy, exciting, intellectually stimulating to me. And we're finally at a point where I think there is enough capital availability and enough to invest in that sector to make it really tremendously exciting, not just for early stage venture, but for credit, for liquid markets, for public equities. There's just a lot you can do across the capital structure to help put crypto in a really advantageous position to serve as sort of the open source coordination layer for how we find, fund, govern, operate this new infrastructure that's needed. So that's what I'm excited about. That's the lore I want to start working on building. And you're going to see a lot more from me that I think is really aligned around that narrative. I also want to get away from the word deepen. So one of the big things I'm going to be working on in the fall is how do I create a new language? Because syntax and language is really important, right? I'm also doing some stuff on the theology side and working with some theologians and some medieval sort of architecture experts to really think about this concept of like, what is the digital cathedral? Like, what is the modern town square, and how do we construct, you know, these new civilizations, these new societies around this new digital and physical infrastructure? It's really interesting.
Let's fucking go. All right. I mean, 30 minutes into conversation with you here is just nowhere near enough, but that's where we're at today. Is there, I mean, we've got your Twitter account up here. If people want to just experience the 0 to 1 of the new lore that's being built here, what's the best place for them to sort of watch and follow along?
It's going to be on Twitter. I'm also trying to use LinkedIn more. LinkedIn has a totally different audience, but I think one of the things I've always thought.
This is streaming to LinkedIn right now, baby. No, there's one person who watches us on LinkedIn. So that's huge for us. That's big. It's big. It took us a lot of time.
My mom. It's my mom. No, but,
Okay,
but
cool.
I think the big thing is we can't just talk to the same people all the time,
Oh,
right?
God,
Like we're
yeah.
screaming at each other on the internet, on Twitter. We have to go outside of the world we're already in and bring new people into our reality, right? And like permeate their consciousness of this new reality. So I actually think LinkedIn is a big aggregation of people who are looking for new ideas, who are looking to be stimulated. The content on LinkedIn is bad. It's like very low tier, like F tier. This is how you market on social media type content.
So good.
If you go on there with anything original, I'm not kidding. If you go on there with anything original and even like remotely thought provoking, you're going to just reach such a big audience of people who are starved for original content. So it's actually, I think, a big unlock.
All right, we got to leave it there.
We gotta
Meltem.
lean. We do. We gotta lean into that.
Appreciate
Okay.
you jumping on in your aesthetic. Best of luck. We'll be watching, and you have anything else
I'll be
fun out of
back.
that world? Good, perfect. Love
I'll
to
be
hear
back
it.
with
Love
my
to hear it.
gospel.
Okay, cool. Thanks,
Thanks for
Meltem.
having me.
Enjoy the
Bye.
garden. Bye-bye.
We need a transcript of that one, I think.
It was awesome.
Noted team. Cut that, clip it. It's funny because I feel so often like I am, maybe we feel we are the ones who are just trying to wave this flag around, lore around. I like this sort of framing of something manifesting reality as like not a weird thing. It's just kind of what we do regularly. So it's, a really great different angle on a pitch that I feel like I've given 1,000 times so far. And I also love that sort of almost like the history back in, like looking at the work being done in early Bitcoin as cult building and brand building and the participation involved. And it's almost like you can like, I mean, I got to witness a lot of that, right? So you can sort of see it. So,
but I think even just looking at Bitcoin as DPIN or Bitcoin and Ethereum as DPIN, I think really it blows open. I think my like mental framing of what DPIN actually is.
Yeah, because we're sort of, well, even if you take DPIN, you say crypto out of the way, we're sort of in this. Well, we've had this discussion this week, right? What does crypto come to the masses, or do masses become more crypto people, right? And it's sort of in this sort of estuary of mingling that we're in right now. And I think this idea of Bitcoin being DPIN, it's almost like, oh, actually, is it a different lane and where, through very pragmatic terms, people start to use these things? I mean, I guess it's not like an insight. I think it's just like more weight behind that one angle as we sort of look at how this market emerges.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's probably a good segue into our wedge conversation. So let's jump to that. Yeah, I think this concept of wedges, I think, touches a lot of this like discourse we've been having around like, do you go mass market? Do you target crypto native audiences? All this conversation around crypto having a retention problem, whereas I think it very much has more of a like go to market and like target audience and like choosing a good wedge problem more than it has a retention problem. So I think we have these types of conversations a lot with our teams. And then this week, Pete Flint, who hadn't heard of it before, I hadn't even heard of NFX, but they did a good kind of research piece and thread on just really diving into wedges, outlined like 12 specific archetypes of wedges that have worked in the past. And I think just gives a really like clear, tangible example of like how effective this like find a small world you can go dominate that is kind of on the path to a larger market, but you're not targeting 1% of some $1 trillion market and trying to like make noise in there. You're targeting this kind of closed, distinct world that you can go dominate and kind of use that to ladder up. And I think we've also just kind of been diving into this a lot with our SEO7 teams, that many of who are kind of out fundraising and putting together compelling pitches and really trying to get them to tell this story of like inevitability of the path they're on. And I think this like wedge language and really being able to speak to it really clearly is critical to that. So I guess just really recommend reading this thread, I guess, as a first piece.
It's a great thread. It goes back, probably one of the most fundamental books on new innovation, or at least like the marketing and go-to-market of new innovation, is Crossing the Chasm, which is really where this idea comes from. I mean, or at least maybe where I was introduced to it. This they sort of use the mental model of like ponds and bowling pins. It's better to be a big fish in a small pond when you're under-resourced. That's kind of like this wedge idea, find the pond. And then the mental model around the bowling pin is like, okay, well, there's lots of ponds you can go play in. How do you go line them up in a way where that first pond it's like the first bowling pin that if you do really well there, it has a knock-on effect into other industries. But I think for founders and builders, it's really this idea of like, I need to have a big market opportunity. I need to go and change the world, which means I need to be, everybody's my market. I'm going to go out and do everything. Whereas really like there's more blocking and tackling, saying, okay, well, for us to go and get to the play where we have the capital to go after the bigger vision that we're at, we need to go do these things first. And I think that zooming into the near term is this challenge that founders have. I think and we see this a lot between people who are more like builders and operators are coming into the founder world and recognizing there needs to sort of be a more dynamic strategy at play here that includes funding, that includes market timing, that includes sort of like the opening that you can go step into. So I think shortening your time horizon, making momentum towards that is far better than, you know, having this sort of, because we talked about the hot start problem last week, I think, right? Like, and cold start problem and all these sort of things can, like, we talk a lot about momentum management at C Club, right? Where it's not about just up and to the right necessarily, because the ability to sustain and build that further actually may be challenged by going too quick. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
Totally.
Great
I think,
resource.
you know, largely crypto Twitter, it's not a wedge. Farcaster's not a wedge. Been actually hearing
Farcaster was a wedge, but it's not a wedge anymore.
I mean, it was
a new distribution.
It was
channel,
a
right?
wedge. I don't know if, so like the tools are great, right? Like being able to, you know, use frames as a distribution channel. But I think largely, and we've been hearing this pretty often actually from teams now that kind of tried to go find their like initial kind of core user group on Farcaster, is there's lots of people there that'll go click buttons, but they're all, you know, they're founders, they're operators, they're busy. They're not actually like the people you should be targeting. And I think, this tweet by Mashiat, I think, is just kind of really hits that nail on the head. Like if you just continue running the same go-to-market playbook that everyone else is running, you're going to have these same kind of ephemeral usage results and find yourself, you know, with charts that look up and then they go down, and then you're going to be kind of stuck having to figure out what to do next. So I think, you know, the pitches we like the least are people that are like, we're going after the mass market, or we're going after everyone in crypto, or we're going after, I think the most interesting thing is like, we have this group of 500 very clear defined people that we can go bring this to, that really want this thing, that we can go incubate our product alongside. And once we do that and the product's working, this is where we can go next. So let's go. Yeah. We know we can go have some fun.
Love
it. Cool. Let's jump to Pudgies. So this week it was announced, I don't know when the deal actually happened, but they announced this week that Founders Fund invested $11 million into the parent company of Pudgy Penguins, that I think includes the brand, the IP, and also Abstract, the new chain they're stepping up. And I just think this kind of, I remember when this happened a few years ago, and you know, it seeing like a lot of money at the time that, you know, Luca was spending for this, you know, mostly failing like NFT collection, IP world. And I think just looking at it now in hindsight, which John's post really kind of hammers home, is it's like, you just have to respect the execution path that he's been on, especially in this, you know, this world where basically every NFT collection is, you know, down and to the right, and Pudgies is just on this steady climb upwards.
It was interesting. So last summer, I was at an event in LA, and I was sitting at a table with the investors that did the investment into Pudgy right then, and they also did an investment into DGods at the same time. And so two young dudes, cult-like, you know, founders in many ways, all sort of stepping into a very similar place, and they've ended up in very, very, very different places. So it's interesting to see the nexus there. They all have, you know, very similar insight, you know, strong community, NFT that's sort of around it. People are excited. I
mean, what do you think? What do you think what went wrong with DGods? Do you think?
I think I don't have inside knowledge on this sort of stuff, so this is more of a general take. But I think what goes wrong with a lot of crypto companies is they think that early speculation equals product market fit, and that the way to go, that's the opportunity to go bring a professionalized your organization. So you bring in a CEO, you bring in executives, etc. And then when it realizes, oh, actually that initial thing we launched isn't the core product, or at least we need to be like evolving it with the community. Those folks just aren't from the space, aren't as capable of doing that, and are trying to really build a type of business that I think just doesn't make sense here. And so that was my sense of DGods. Again, not really having a whole lot of personal insight into it. And but yeah, I'm sure it's probably a thing to dive into in a bit more detail because I think it's an interesting case study.
Yeah, we should get Frank on.
But
I think another
to look at it and see what these L2s do, because I think we're sort of in this new era of like cult L2s. But my guess is it's actually like the mechanisms that they roll these out with that are going to be more impactful in the communities here. That's the community just seems like a starting point. And so it's going to be interesting to see how like a bear chain and the economic model that exists there would compete against a Pudgy, and I guess TBD what the economic model is there, though I guess they're probably pulling a bunch from Frame. So
yeah, I do think another interesting piece here is just how I guess like the price appreciation of the Pudgy's NFT collection has I guess like followed the like real world kind of business success that Pudgy's had. Like I'm not in the community. I don't, but from what I can tell from the outside, like they haven't done much to just like directly go and serve this NFT audience, but they've sold, I think John said like $40 million and $400 million in maybe royalties and plushies. Is that maybe 40? I don't know.
No, yeah.
I don't know what the number, but whatever. They've been successful bringing those to like mass market. They have an Instagram account with 1.5 million people following, hundreds of millions of views on their gifts and stories and content they create.
Well, that was actually crazy, right? Like the whole Luca was showing me like their rollout of GIF at that same meeting, and the millions upon millions of views these things get through Giphy, etc. I think that's a really great point, though, right? My sense is like if we think about memes, which I'll put Pudgy in, that they're sort of like if you just make an argument that like this is an attention asset, the volatility will be huge, but there really isn't sort of like a sustaining narrative beyond that will make somebody be like, oh fuck yeah, it's down a little bit now, but look at all these great things that are going on, and I can sort of angle that way. And I think that's the mechanism, right? So it's like what is the economic flow that we can sort of drive through this network? And so maybe if one serving just more NFT use cases, and people are like, well, I don't need a 17th NFT from you, they're all worth zero, why the fuck do I want that? Versus Pudgy's has got 3 huge corporate retail deals, and the views are going up and to the right, and there's a sense of momentum and value that we'll be able to create moving forward. I
mean, I imagine the kind of core speculative narrative here is like if Pudgy's goes and becomes the next like Sanrio, or like the Sanrio of our generation, clearly these kind of original core collectibles are going to be very valuable. But who knows? I'd like to tap into that community a little more and see what's happening.
Well, let's buy it, but we just need $30,000 and we're in, baby.
I mean, honestly, like that chart,
it's awesome
in the context of everything else that's been happening in NFTs, is impressive as fuck.
It's incredible. It's truly. Look at the dump, though.
I think that's just a daily like one.
Yeah.
It's like fat-handed sale or something that day.
Rest in peace. All right, I got 3 minutes and I'm running away from y'all. So
let's go. Okay, let's jump into disrupting Pump quickly.
Can we talk short? Well, I'll stay for short, and then I'll run. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can get through these too quickly. Yeah, you got a ferry to catch. Yeah, so I think this one's just interesting. Continue just seeing so many new products launched that are like kind of slight variations of the Pump model. It's like, oh, it's Pump, but we do this subtle thing that's going to make it better. Seeing a lot of kind of early founders kind of that we're talking to kind of pitching similar products. And I think largely people are just so underestimating how strong the network effects that exist on Pump are right now, and the power of having the best meme creators, the best like early community members, the most degenerate liquidity all aggregated on one place. Like that is a very hard thing to unravel. And I think this chart is like very a great example of that, because Deck Screener has tons of attention. They have all this proprietary distribution. They did everything they can on their platform to give the moonshot tokens the best real estate, the best look, and they haven't even been able to make a dent in Pump.fun. So I think the two paths to this that I'm really interested in is one, someone trying to go vampire attack Pump, because I want to see what happens. B, I'm interested to see if that forces their hand that they have to. I also really want to see. So I think that's like,
let's go. Somebody do it. Let's go.
I want to see that, and I think like really the interesting opportunity here is like, can you go create a new meme coin meta? And I think there's like a bunch of different fun tools to play with, right? I think there's probably bonding curve fatigue. I think there's a lot of downsides with the current like dev, the like a non-dev thing. Like, can you go shine more of a light on the teams behind these things, or like the early communities of them? I think the social distribution kind of game that we're seeing with Enjoy? Like, is there a way to kind of get that into a new meta? So I think the two paths to actually doing this are define an entirely new meta that feels new and exciting and can kind of bootstrap network effects that way, or just go after them with a token.
Yeah. I mean, I think like liquidity or more specifically like just token demand is like where that network effect lives. And I think the thing that people are getting wrong with Pump.fun is there's this belief that Pump is like this consumer product that a lot of people are using and that there's this huge demand to use it, making a ton of money, lots of things being launched there. But I think it is actually a really small market. And actually the ones that are making a ton of money is actually a very professional botted small market. So it built a really great mechanism to do exactly what they're doing right there. And one that I think is, for as long as people want to go and do this type of thing, it'd be very hard to unwind. But it's, I think, tough for me to see where I don't think doing more of the same for Pump equals long-term success. I mean, maybe if long-term success is it just continues to print money and great, but there's sort of like, what is that next level? And I think the same thing for new entrants. It's like, well,
Totally.
You're not going to be 40,000 people are using this thing on a weekly basis. You got to go find a new pocket of another 100,000 to go talk with because these people are satisfied right now. And I think it's interesting.
It's not the Robin Hood for meme coins either, I don't think. All right, cool. Let's jump to short memes. Do you want to go cook? So there are actually two protocols that launched this week to let people
short. I love it. Do you really hate memes? If you really hate memes,
I'd love it too. Skin in the game. What is it? Skin in the game or shut the fuck up is Nick to me.
Yeah. I think your tweets on this is fun. Like, I think people are going to I'm not sure these are going to be super huge, but I think somebody's going to get fucking wrecked. Somebody's going to go after and short DGen, and the DGen community is going to be like, yo, somebody's shorting us, and they're going to literally squeeze the living shit out of them. And hello, Nikki. And people are going to get wrecked.
Yeah. I mean, that was my tweet, right? It's like, this is a dream scenario for a cult meme coin community to have like visibility into people who are shorting them and know their size and know exactly where they need to get to like squeeze them. Like, imagine being in this meme community and like alongside the buy bots, you have the short bots, and just like when one of those comes through, how sick that would be for this like community.
It's a way better raid. It's a way better raid.
It's so good.
So they're just creating the conditions for
this to go crazier.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. Yeah,
for Rainbow Kitty or what? I can't even remember his name.
No, I mean, exactly right. That was the whole GME, the GameStop game was short squeeze, and then now these places with real cult communities and like networked internet assets, like you bring that there, and whew, it's gonna be a fun game.
Thanks, y'all.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'm gonna see you later. I'm gonna run catch a ferry. I'll see you guys on the internet. I'll leave you with Josh.
See you there.
All right, peace.
No,
can you get your like square up here so I don't just feel like I'm talking to myself?
No, you're gonna be talking to yourself. It's right. We're in a different setup. I'm sorry.
Let's go. No worries.
I'm technically camera on right now, but you wouldn't believe it.
You wouldn't believe it. All right, sick. Let's jump to Sparks. I'm actually interested in your take on this. So Zora, actually, I think maybe like once a month for the last 6 months, Jacob would tweet that ETH needs a stock split, largely just talking about kind of the increasingly small numbers we're dealing with and kind of how shitty that feels. And it was cool this week to see that they actually came out with a new symbol. So instead of a stock split, they're like, oh, fuck it, we'll just go create our own symbol, open source it, allow anyone to go and use this in their applications if they want. So they introduced this new, ETH currency symbol called Sparks. That is, I think it's one ETH is 1 million Sparks. They're going to start using it all over their product. I think we're already seeing some, Zora obviously has a lot of influence and sway in kind of the creative Ethereum community. So we're already seeing a bunch of new projects kind of integrate that and use Sparks within their own product. So I think this is just cool. I think it also made me realize how, I mean, you probably love ETH as like a currency symbol, but it made me realize how lame just like 3 numbers are actually as this currency symbol. So it's cool to see them introduce a new one. But Peace, I'm curious on your take.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think my take is pretty surface level. I think ETH needs to 1000x, and then Gwei becomes relevant. But then, but I don't know. I think there's a couple ways to approach it. There's like the lingual way. And I just like, I don't know if we've ever, I would be interested to know in history if there has ever been a division of currency that was put forward for some proprietary reason, or like, yeah, in a forced way, right? I mean, like people call like $1 a buck, or like all these like slang terms and stuff like that. So it just will be interesting to me if people will start using Sparks, if it becomes curious. Already seeing people in the comments being like, we're gonna get Sparks or something. And like that's fine. And then the logo, I'm also not crazy about, just because it is like, it just reminds me of the AI magic symbol and like and kind of the ENS logo. But that's like, those feel like really surface level criticisms. And what I like more than anything is that they have an opinion and a need, and they're just like, and they just think that this will work, and they're doing it. And that is dope as hell to see.
Totally. I mean, already, like they were already kind of playing with this idea in the Zora mobile product with mints, right? So instead of, having ETH and, paying 000, 777 ETH to collect something, they had mints. One mint was 1 mint. But I think it gets way more fun with priced mints and, seeing things cost whatever 1,000 Sparks, I think, than costing.
For sure. I think it's like, yeah, my criticisms are probably like literally because I'm not used to it. I'm like, oh, you're giving me a new thing. Come on, man. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. Especially, yeah, if you see dynamic pricing in Zora. I like the mint thing though. I love buying mints. That feels awesome. But maybe that changes.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to just see it in the wild and see how that feels. And yeah, maybe it falls on its face and no one cares, but maybe it's a new thing.
I'm super curious to see how it takes in our language, like when another app uses it. Will another app use it? Maybe.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's jump to prediction markets. Do we not have a what the fuck did Pete's do on chain this week? Were you not very busy on chain?
I wasn't really very busy on chain, but there is something that we need to discuss on chain. Let's do prediction.
Let's do prediction markets, and then we can jump to that. Yeah. So, I mean, continue talking about this. They're hot. They're interesting. And Kyle Samani dropped a good thread this week on the importance of regularity in prediction markets. I think, yeah, really just talks about, the DraftKings FanDuel kind of business model. And, really the core of that business model is predicated on being able to kind of predictably acquire people and convert them into regular users and, have them continue to transact over long periods of time and, take fees from that. And I think, he's asking a question that I've asked a lot, which is, what happens next on Polymarket after, the election's over. And I think increasingly, I think Polymarket's breaking out enough where they can kind of go be the professional prediction market, where there's kind of always stuff to go do there. There's probably going to be an increasing number of businesses that want to, go there and use it to manage risk or, hedge against something that they're kind of overly reliant on. So I tend to think Polymarket's going to continue being fine, but I think it's interesting in the context of a lot of these up and coming kind of new prediction market products that are kind of looking at, the success Polymarket's having, looking at, prediction markets as kind of this really interesting primitive and, trying to figure out kind of more social, more consumer friendly ways, probably more vertical specific ways to kind of go build products that are, better for your kind of average consumer retail audience or someone with a specific interest. And I think this question of regularity is a really important one. And we've been talking to Kizzy quite a bit, and Kizzy's building social media betting products. So basically being able to, bet on how social media posts do. And I think that's like a really great example of a product with actually like more regularity than sports betting. Like there are infinite influencers, they create content many times a day. So there's this like inherent insane amount of regularity. Obviously with them, the game becomes, can they actually, create this compelling game that kind of extends people's fandom, of these influencers and, desire to kind of participate in their social media ecosystems. But yeah, I think, just this idea of regularity is really important.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was also daydreaming this week about I guess, kind of reading about future key and kind of, I don't even know how to say that, but, daydreaming about what an entirely prediction market governed organization would look like, and got a bunch of responses. It's like, oh, this is future key. Oh, look at MetaDAO. But I think like the way I was coming at it much more from like, what is this really weird consumer behavior or consumer experience you could build around prediction markets, that where like the game doesn't stop at like the buying and selling of the market. It actually just like extends. There's like downstream effects of that happening that kind of extends the experience of these prediction markets. So have some like very loose ideas on where that could go. I think probably like some sort of an investment DAO with like, prediction markets, kind of comparing different assets and people's expectations of, how they perform in 6 months or something. It's probably like an easy example of that. But I don't know. I want to spend more time just kind of daydreaming on what this could look like, because I just have an intuition that there's some weird stuff that you could build here.
Love it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. We could jump to lightning round, or what was the on-chain thing you want to talk about?
Well, let's see. So, I mean, this is a great lightning round. Can I bring this into my browser? Why is it not working? Can you see this? Okay, nice. You ready for a lightning onboarding, people? Are you guys on your desktop computers? You should be. Okay, the first thing you need to do expeditiously is install Xverse Wallet. Do you have it already, Josh?
I don't, man. I haven't done this. It's an Ordinals wallet or a Bitcoin wallet?
Yeah, it's a good old fashioned Bitcoin wallet.
I do not have this. I hold Bitcoin, but I'm not very onboarded into the.
Oh, bang it into your Chrome extension, okay? Because right now you'll see on our site, if you click where you're logged in, you click your name, you'll see a little form here, and there's a message. It says IEXBTC. Internet Explorers are coming to the mother chain, and if you're here now, you're going to want to come with us. So submit your most active on-chain accounts below. So totally recommend. All good if you don't get it to it today. We'll have a form going out wide and far next week. But if you can download the Xverse wallet, you should. Like all wallets, you have an option to save your secret poem later. And you can get straight to the menu here, and you can actually find your address by tapping receive. And what will come up are two options. Xverse Wallet is a nice wallet because they separate your ordinals address, which is a Taproot Bitcoin address, from your regular Bitcoin address. And so if you copy paste your ordinals address, it starts with a BC1P. You can paste it in here and save it. And you can come in and edit it as you need. And if you're playing on Solana, you should drop that as well. Your primary ETH address will just be whatever you're logged in as, but there's a field if you have a hardware wallet or some freak account, you can plug it in. But
so TLDR here is we're doing something on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We want to know your address because we're going to do things with those addresses. Is there anything else you want to say about this, or keep the rest secret?
Well, the rest is coming next week. But
Is it next week?
Well, I mean, we're going to release next week, but we're gonna have a bunch more to share.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good. All right, let's see. We got 2 minutes. Let's see what lightning round we can kick out.
Let's see. What do we have? I don't even have a lightning round folder.
Oh, I dumped some stuff in there.
Oh, okay.
Maybe open up the sheet.
Nice.
I was kind of late. I was a little slow this morning.
No,
my Friday mornings preparing for this are very scrambly.
Send me a link on TG here. Actually, send me some links because we got personal info in the sheet. I don't want to blast anyone.
Okay, what do we got here?
Straight up on my feed, what's on the no rock ID. So embarrassing. Oh,
what do you got?
This is so true. The sectional tension. I guess this is a JD Vance joke.
Oh, that's good.
Kiss. Yeah, because I don't remember whose couch that was. Friends, definitely Mary. And this couch was a crazy trend on TikTok. I don't know. They found a couch on the side of the street. Okay.
I just sent you a few.
Yeah,
that top couch though, you cannot beat the comfiness of the like
real.
80s, 90s, decade old worked in couch.
It's true. Oh yeah, nice. This was
is
at
just
800 million.
Fucking crazy, man. I mean, I think this just hammers home how I've kind of always seen meme coins as cultural prediction markets, and I think that just hammers it home so hard, right? Like I think, Bowden, great meme, right? But only a great meme if Biden continues being in the spotlight, and there's no confidence that's going to continue happening.
I saved this awesome thing, LDF. If you're watching, I'm sorry, but I loved it. There was LDF posted like, my family member just asked if I can buy Bowden. Should I not? And I had to put it on here. It says you can't even zoom in like
I saw it. Was it Bowden?
It says Bowden blocked by LDF. But
and then like
and then it moved. Yeah, but now they're safe. So it was a good call. It was a good call by Bowden. Because
they would have either round tripped it. Maybe they would have sold for 2x or something.
No, they would have put the rest of their life savings in. It was like the garage meme.
Yeah.
You like put a can of soda in, you get 2 back. You're like,
right. Maybe pull up that Elon one that I just threw down for a sec.
Let's say. We love Elon. We love Pump.
We do.
Thank you, Pump.
Honestly, seeing him like grow into this like insane advocate for the type of person that they're serving has been awesome to watch. But I think this is just actually a very important point, and tweeted something about it earlier this week that I think startup builders have been like conditioned, probably just because of like Silicon Valley culture, that you need to always be solving a problem. And I think like we've just seen so many of the projects we work with try to like fit their thing into this standard like problem solution slide. And I just like there are so many ways to go build things that people care about. Solving some like core problem they have is one of them, but also just creating something that is just insanely fun is another one. So I think just like getting out of this like I need to be solving a problem as a builder mindset, and really just kind of stepping into I need to figure out how to build something that people actually care about and can have fun with, and is offering experiences that they want to have is a more useful framing. Obviously, solving problems is one way to do that.
This guy had some really good tweets though, like on the other side of that. I'm looking for an app with system components, solves a problem, monthly subscription. Which I really fuck with. Apparently they are building this app have built this app called Overboard. Can I get a screenshot of it?
Yeah, it's a great, that's also a very valid way to go build something that matters, right?
Totally.
I don't think it's the only way. And very often this like problem solution framework is like pretty awkward for, people building cults.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah, love it.
We're over time.
Yep. So let's do it again next week.
Submit your Bitcoin wallets piece. Are you gonna post that description, because I'm gonna need it, or that walkthrough?
Oh yeah, I'll send it. I mean, you won't need it. You always think you need it, and then you get a wallet, and you're like, I know what I'm doing here. It's like follow your heart.
But where to submit it? It's on our site.
It's on our site, and we're gonna close it right now, and we're gonna reshare it. So if you got it in, that's dope. We'll see you there. We'll know who the chosen few are, and you have plenty of time to share your address later, because we'll be really loud about it next week.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks for everyone that hung out. See you same time next week, 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a bunch more topics, because the clock never stops.
Internet